El Salvador President Bukele says he won't be releasing a Maryland man back to the U.S. Washington AP, President Donald Trump's top advisors and Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, said Monday that they have no basis for the small Central American nation to return a Maryland man who was wrongly deported there last month. Bukele called the idea preposterous, even though the U.S. Supreme Court has called on the administration to facilitate Kilmar Abrego Garcia's return. Trump administration officials emphasized that Abrego Garcia, who was sent to a notorious gang prison in El Salvador, was a citizen of that country and that the U.S. has no say in his future. And Bukele, who has been a vital partner for the Trump administration in its deportation efforts, said, of course, he would not release him back to U.S. soil. The question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? Bukele, seated alongside Trump, told reporters in the Oval Office Monday, I don't have the power to return him to the United States. Should El Salvador want to return Abrego Garcia, the U.S. would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane, Attorney General Pam Bondi said. But first and foremost, he was illegally in our country, and he had been illegally in our country, she said. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. In a court filing Monday evening, Joseph Mazzara, the acting general counsel for the Department of Homeland Security, said it does not have authority to forcibly extract Abrego Garcia from El Salvador because he is in the domestic custody of a foreign sovereign nation. Mazzara also argued that Abrego Garcia is no longer eligible for withholding of removal because the U.S. designated MS-13 as a foreign terror organization. Abrego Garcia's attorneys say the government has provided no evidence that he was affiliated with MS-13 or any other gang. The refusal of both countries to allow the return of Abrego Garcia, who had an immigration court order preventing his deportation over fears of gang persecution, is intensifying a battle over the Maryland resident's future. It has also played out in contentious court filings, with repeated refusals from the government to tell a judge what it plans to do, if anything, to repatriate him. The judge handling the case, Paul Azinis, is now considering whether to grant a request from the man's legal team to compel the government to explain why it should not be held in contempt. The fight over Abrego Garcia also underscores how critical El Salvador has been as a linchpin of the U.S. administration's mass deportation operation. I wanted to say hello to the people of El Salvador and say they have one hell of a president, Trump said as he greeted Bukele, who was wearing a black mock turtleneck sans tie. Bukele struck a deal under which the U.S. will pay about $6 million for El Salvador to imprison the Venezuelan immigrants for a year. But Democrats have raised alarm about the treatment of Abrego Garcia and other migrants who may be wrongfully detained in El Salvador. Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland pushed for a meeting with Bukele while he was in Washington to discuss Abrego Garcia's potential return, and New Hampshire Senator Jeanne Shaheen, the top Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, urged the administration to release Abrego Garcia and others with no credible criminal record who were deported to the maximum security prison. Disregarding the rule of law, ignoring unanimous rulings by the Supreme Court, and subjecting individuals to detention and deportation without due process makes us less safe as a country, Shaheen said. Bukele came to power in the middle of Trump's first term and had a straightforward relationship with the U.S. leader. Trump was most concerned with immigration and, under Bukele, the number of Salvadorans heading for the U.S. border declined.